Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Women Who Rock Investigates, where branding just got even better for women. Our media source provides case studies in the areas of health, policy and government, human resources, and more. Our experts are handpicked with credible information to validate the latest in these studies. Join us each Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time after Women Who Rock with Success. Now, let's go to the show.
And good morning, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast on Women Who Rocks with Success Investigates. And this is your show host, Ms. Diane Winbush. And so over the last 3 weeks, you know that we have been giving information to immigrants and those others that would like information in regards to DACA recipients, the definition of DACA, and as well as to what can potentially happen if the president does go ahead and change his mind. And so today we have back in the studio with us immigration attorney of Wilner and O'Reilly, Joshua Despain. So good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Okay, great. So, again, we're going to be talking about some questions about DACA, and we have a pretty good long list here today. And so we're going to try to, get this, done as soon as possible. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. And so first of all, we're going to start from the bottom of the questionnaire, and then we're going to go a little bit go back to the front. Because a lot of times, this is what I want to address. Sometimes individuals, what I'm seeing now is they're concerned about who to ask for, who to talk to, which attorney to select to defend their argument. So once again, I would love for you to share with the audience a little bit about you, what you do, and a little bit about Wilner and O'Reilly.
Yeah, so Wilner and O'Reilly, we're actually one of the biggest firms in the United States that does only immigration, and we have been around almost 17 years. It's going to be our 17th anniversary next month, actually. I've been with the firm for 4 years, and it's been great to just be here where we can just help anybody who has any type of immigration question, whether it's about DACA or about helping a family member or someone who's in immigration court, someone who wants to start a business or look for a job and have a visa for that. We've helped lots of people and had some pretty famous clients over the years, even musicians, athletes, and pretty much anybody who wants to come into the U.S. We'll figure out a way that we can make it happen.
Okay, and so great response. So what are some of take for instance like a couple of examples of what a immigrant, or I hate to call them immigrants, but what a potential DACA recipient would expect from? What would they need to look for if they are seeking for your expertise? We're going to go there first.
Yeah. So one thing that is an advantage with our firm is that we only do immigration, and so that really helps us specialize in that one area. We devote all our resources and research to just immigration. I've occasionally seen people who they go to an attorney who does a little bit of everything, or maybe they do mostly family law or criminal defense and then sort of dabble in immigration. And that sometimes can backfire because then you get someone who is just sort of learning on the job and they end up making mistakes or doing things that another attorney needs to clean up. And so I would say if you have immigration questions, go straight to an immigration attorney, not just any attorney. And then you want to just see what their experience is, and you can do that by just seeing how long they've been in business and trying to find out information just by Google. I mean, we do a lot of focus on Google reviews because we know a lot of clients, that's what they do. The first thing they want to know when they want to find an immigration attorney, they go to Google and they just look up immigration attorney in their hometown. And so those Google reviews can be really helpful too. And then other websites too. There's websites like Avo, which is a good one to find lawyers. You can also go to the Bar Association website in the state you live in, and they might have a database on who their attorneys are, who are licensed in that state, whether they've had any sort of disciplinary actions. That would be good to know if your attorney has ever gotten in trouble with the Bar Association or ever been disbarred or had some sort of a penalty. That would be good to know, because you can avoid going to an attorney who's made serious mistakes that got him in trouble before. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I would do if I were giving advice to someone who's just looking for an attorney.
Great, because today what I am seeing a whole lot of is that there are a lot of individuals that have went out, immigrants, DACA recipients, and those that are applying for DACA, trying to make sure, I guess, that their stay here is not expired or terminated. I see that they are seeking out for a lot of attorneys, paid attorneys, but they are not being given the appropriate information, and their money or funds are being taken. So I think that is an awesome advantage that they have if they was to come to Wilner and O'Reilly to be able to seek an attorney. Just like you said, sometimes individuals will practice all sorts of law, including with the immigration as well. So I think that is very, very important. So I thank you so much for clarifying that.
Yeah, I've seen some attorneys, for example, who they maybe do know a little bit and have some right answers, but they just don't know that there are other options out there. So like I've had people come to my office to say, I was told by this other attorney that I need to leave the United States and wait for a process with the U.S. Embassy and all this, and I can say, well, that's one way to do it, but actually there's a better, faster, easier way to do it, and it's just something that the other attorney was not aware of. And so it's not necessarily that these other attorneys are doing a bad job or that they are purposely trying to hurt people. It's just that they don't have experience. And so that's something that we have at our firm and something you want to look for when you're looking for an immigration attorney.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you so much for clarifying it. It's just I just sympathize with a lot of them, and so my thing is with them. My thing was, I'm gonna try my best to get you the information that you need, and they're just crying out for help, and they feel that they're, and it's what you're stating, that sometimes individuals may not have all of the information. The attorney may not. And then sometimes things will hit the media, of new releases or updated information, and then they'll go back to their attorney, as you stated, well, let's wait a minute, because that's what one of the questions were last week. The paid attorney was telling them to wait, but it was something else that was on the internet that told them different. So they're kind of confused, and so that's the reason why you're here.
Good.
To help us, to be able to help them to be able to understand. I really pray for them that they will get whatever it is that they need, and that's on a serious note, because I would feel in a very negative position if I'm here in a state or in a country and I'm looking for information, and I'm seeing it over here, then this other person just got approved, because I think that was one of the issues, too, where she got approved, and my attorney told me, and she didn't have an attorney, so my attorney told me just to wait, but she just got approved when she had filed last month. So, I'm kind of a little concerned about that. So, anyway, we're going to move forward even more in the questions, and so thank you so much for your response on that. So, does anyone have knowledge or this question is in regards to travel. Can we travel domestically in an airplane with a foreign passport or a limited purpose driver's license?
Yeah, those are some good questions. So if you are already in the United States and you're just traveling to another part of the United States, you do not have to show immigration status or prove that you're allowed to be in the U.S. or that you're allowed to enter the U.S. Once you're here, the airport doesn't check on that. You don't have to go through customs and meet with any customs officers. So, a passport or a driver's license, as long as it meets the regular requirements for ID. I know, in kind of an unrelated issue, some states are having to change to different driver's license to meet the TSA requirements. So those requirements are changing in some places. So, your driver's license maybe wouldn't meet those TSA requirements, but that's separate from immigration. I would say, though, that one risk in traveling domestically, though, is that sometimes ICE agents are at airports, mostly just because that's where they find people. They go to crowded places, people are congregating there, and ICE has a chance of maybe finding some people who lack immigration status. And so it's not that you have to get checked by ICE just to go to the airport. It's just that sometimes by coincidence they are there. And I have heard of stories of, I get an email or something to say, just to warn you, ICE agents are at the local airport. And so then, that might be something you want to be cautious of. But as far as what you're allowed to do, if you're here in the U.S. Already, then you can travel within the United States, and that doesn't change anything about your immigration status.
Okay, great. So here is a video that I had watched, and what one of the immigrants wanted to know, it states that the Trump administration just released these 4 factors, and one was renewal will be only valid for 1 to 2 years, rejection to new DACA applicants, and rejection, and see, this is what is confusing them because they're seeing one thing and someone else is saying something else. So number 3 is rejecting new and pending requests for advance parole absent exceptional circumstances. And so they are saying that the president is willing to, it can take up to 100 days to, I guess, to be able to end DACA again. So as last week we saw the president signing something as to be able to seem like that he's in the favor of the immigrants, but now what it is saying now is something totally different. So I guess they are looking for a clarification of that. Some of them are kind of concerned as to which news release should they believe. Is it what they saw him signing, or is it this here of what he just released? I think it was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. That news came out yesterday, and one of the first things I thought of was this podcast and this Q&A, because I wanted to make sure that we talked about it, because it's pretty big news. So what we've been saying the past few weeks is that USCIS, which is U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, they are the part of the Department of Homeland Security that handles a lot of immigration applications, including DACA. So after the Supreme Court's decision last month, there really wasn't any official word from USCIS about how they were handling these. So we were just basing it on what the Supreme Court said, which is that DACA is back to the way it was before 2017. And so we were kind of moving forward with that assumption. I was hearing about from other attorneys about applications being rejected, but the law was on our side because the Supreme Court said DACA is back. What happened yesterday was that USCIS is basically making a statement saying, all right, we're going to try again to end DACA. While we're looking into it, we're not accepting new applications. We're not accepting applications for advanced parole unless there are exceptional circumstances. We are still doing renewals, but instead of 2 years, it's just for 1 year. And we are still trying to figure out how to respond to this because even though this is what USCIS is saying they are doing, it still doesn't fit really with what the Supreme Court said. You know, when the USCIS agency is allowed to make its own rules and its own procedures, but to say they're just going to stop doing something because they want to look into ending the program, they're kind of making it sound like it's sort of this administrative procedure that they're going through, and in the meantime, they don't want to accept new applications. My feeling personally is that it's still worth sending in an application because the law is on the side of the people trying to get DACA. The Supreme Court made a decision, and USCIS is kind of doing its own thing, which it really shouldn't do without some checks and balances. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to know, and as a firm, we're still trying to figure out our policy. Do we go ahead and send these applications, or do we wait and see what happens? We're still trying to figure that out as a firm, and so it is a little bit hard to know what to do. But with anything in immigration, I tend to be optimistic and more willing to try things rather than just give up before we even begin. And so we're definitely going to keep fighting on this and keep doing the best we can for our clients. And I would say at this point, the risk of having an application rejected, it just means basically you spent some time and money to send something and it got returned. It doesn't get you in any sort of trouble. Being rejected is different from being denied. And so rejected just means they aren't accepting the application, but then you're back to where you were before.
if you do get rejected, maybe that will help in the future if they do bring DACA back or bring back another program, or there might be some options even to sue in federal court. And so that's another reason why I would say it's not something that should make everyone freeze and be too scared to try. I think there's still some things we can try and still some options out there.
Okay, great. And so the next question is in regards to the previous response that you just made, and so this is a psychological, I guess, question. And so they're asking, how do we keep on fighting with the constant anxiety? And so they're saying, is there any advice to that? Because, and the reason why I shared this question was simply because of the fact that they're working some of the DACA recipients and the ones that are have been rejected, they are looking to do a protest, and so we know how that can go if once the Hispanic culture comes out, especially in the states of California and Arizona. If they come all the way out of the woodwork, it's going to be a huge, massive protest. And so, what would you suggest for them when they are trying to fight against all of this anxiety? I'm up one day, I have hope the next day. The next day it says I'm rejected. The next day the president is signing something else. We don't know how to trust whatever it is that he is signing or what he's saying on the news press releases.
Yeah, and that's something, I mean, every immigration attorney struggles with. There's been a lot of changes, some good, some bad, some we don't know, and it's definitely a stressful time. But as a firm, and for me personally, we all just try to be confident and optimistic, and try to look at the good side of things. And like I said, just do the best we can for our clients, and try out things, even if there's maybe a little bit of risk involved. We usually just kind of explain what the risks are and hope for the best. And there's nothing we would do that would purposefully endanger any of our clients or put them in a worse situation. And for most clients, they can improve their situation. Even with the way things are now, there's reasons to be hopeful. And so that's something we try to make sure all our clients understand. We try to be realistic, of course. We don't want to just look at the world through rose-colored glasses and only look at the good things and forget the bad. But there's usually a lot of good news out there. And as far as protesting, I think it's definitely within people's rights to make their voices heard, and it can make things happen. We've seen that even just this year with other issues where protests end up influencing policies or regulations, and so I think it does have an effect. And if someone's interested in getting their voice heard, there's lots of ways to do that, whether it's out in the streets or online or just talking to their friends and neighbors. There's lots of ways to make your voices heard, to learn and get information and access resources. And I think that's one way to maybe manage the anxiety as well. If you feel like you're trying to do something about this, trying to respond, trying to have an influence, that could cope with the psychological effects of going through all this as well.
Yeah, because I think that sometimes, I think it could be a lack of knowledge, and then too, it could be also, sometimes it's the protests are they're due to frustration. I mean, I'm 100% behind them on that one. And mostly of theirs that I've seen in the past with their culture has been peaceful. It has not been where it's looting like African Americans, I guess I would say, and some other racial backgrounds. But that would be the next question. Do you think that would be a helpful thing? Because so take for instance a protest that just with what's his name, George Floyd. Of course, it turned a lot of laws. And so, do you think that they have a possibility to be able to, I guess, if I could use that word, strong arm the president through their protests?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we've seen lots of effects and impact from protests on various things, and I think that could work with immigration as well. We, if nothing else, it just helps people know what the communities are really thinking. Sometimes politicians are just so sort of insulated or just used to what people around them are saying or what people were saying 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and they don't realize that things have changed or that the communities have different ideas. And so protests and just sharing thoughts and stories online or with others is one way to get the word out there that says, hey, actually, we have a different idea or we have some different thoughts, and maybe there's something that others don't expect or that they aren't used to, and that's all the more reason to get the word out there.
Absolutely. Okay. So another immigrant was asking a question, and this is in regards to he wanted to leave, but he wanted to return back to Honduras, but he's in fear that he perhaps, well, his words are, and I'm going to use the exact words that he used, but I want to avoid being lynched in Honduras. So what would be my option, or where should I go?
Yeah, so that sounds like someone who maybe has a fear of returning to their home country that could be the basis for a claim of asylum. Asylum is hard to get these days. There's more and more restrictions being put on asylum. But if you have a fear of returning to your home country because of certain factors, asylum might be an option. One thing that could get in the way is that normally you need to apply for asylum within 1 year of coming into the U.S. So if you've already been in the U.S. for more than a year, it might be too late, or at least you would have some extra evidence to include to explain why you waited more than a year. But that's the first thing I would check in a situation like that. The other thing is that generally I would say if someone's in the United States, it's better to stay in the United States just because once you leave, that triggers some other immigration consequences that could make it hard to find a visa or other immigration benefit in the future. Of course, if someone has already been ordered to leave the U.S., then it hurts to stay in the U.S. at that point. But if someone is here, either they never had a visa or maybe they had a visa but it expired, once they leave the U.S., that triggers some other consequences to make it hard to come back. And so it really depends on the situation, and it would be a good idea to talk to an immigration attorney just to understand the risks and benefits of either staying in the U.S. or leaving the U.S. and seeing what the options are and whether those options are limited by any decision.
So basically, do not make a drastic move such as that on your own. You need to have some sort of legal representation before you make that. Because I would think that if he left, that would reopen the door back open for him to, to be captured, and then he would be considered as an illegal immigrant if he tried to re-enter the country and what have you. So, I know different
it could be
laws
something like that, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, that is a possible scenario that if you leave the U.S. and then want to come back, maybe you won't be allowed to come back, or there will be some other things that stand in the way. And so I always tell clients before you leave the U.S., check with me. Check to make sure it's safe to do it and you'll be able to come back, or maybe you won't be. And so if you do leave, here's what you might have to do to come back. And so, I would tell that person, talk to an attorney to make sure, because it might be better to stay here. Maybe it is better to leave. It just depends on the situation.
Okay. So we know that within the news for the last several months that the President of the United States have been addressing the nation in regards to DACA, putting away DACA, and what have you. Are there any type of answers that local government? I know they can come to attorneys and things like that too. Sometimes that even may frighten them. Even if you tell them that, hey, look, here's an immigration attorney right here. Sometimes they feel that they are disguised to set them up or something like that. It's a lot of panic that is going on with the Hispanic culture, and so say, so take for instance, if they say, well, we're gonna decide to do something else in our local jurisdiction first before we seek out an attorney, are there any type of ramifications that the local government, such as the mayor or what have you, can be able to give answers for DACA recipients, which that's probably going to be very low because you rarely hear them in the newspaper talking about immigrants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and local governments don't really have a lot of control over immigration laws or policy, just because when it comes down to it, immigration is about who's allowed to cross the foreign borders. And so it's something that, of course, local governments don't really have a lot of influence in. But one example might be that local governments or even states can have policies about accepting students in public schools. So especially at the university level, that's where some states make it easier for people to go to school, whether they have a social security number or not, whether they have some kind of immigration status or not. Some schools are more accepting than others, so that's something where maybe the local government can have some influence. Another example would be some states make it easier to get a driver's license than other states, and some states, they don't look into your immigration status that much, or what kind of visa you have, or whether the visa is expired. Other states, they want to know, are you allowed to be in the U.S., and they want to know that before they issue a driver's license. So those are some areas where immigration sort of overlaps with state governments or local governments, where those local governments can make a decision one way or the other. Are we going to kind of do our part to enforce these immigration laws, or are we going to leave that up to the immigration agencies and we can just be helpful to give driver's license or enrollment in school or things like that? And then, I think that's maybe the two ideas that come to mind, is just about school and driver's licenses are where different places have different policies, and so you can see what your local government handles with those issues, and whether there's a way to maybe change that, and whether that's voting. Of course, if you are not a U.S. citizen, you can't vote, but you can still protest or make your voices heard or get your message out there and try to have your influence that way.
And so, speaking of protesting, we're going to touch on that just a little bit once again, because a lot of times when individuals seems like the immigration culture, they appear to do their research just a little bit, even though they may be blindsided to some other factors that they may have or don't have here in the United States. But when it comes to research and government, it seems like they do have like a thorough, strong point in that area. So when it comes to pointing the fingers, because that's the reason why I'm saying that, when they find out who's the one that is at fault, that's the one who they go after, and that's very intelligent. I got to give that part to them. So here they are saying, is Homeland Security to blame for DACA applications being rejected? Because, of course, we see the President of the United States. He's taking all the punches. He's there on the forefront. He's there that's putting out all of the news to the nation in regards to DACA. But some of the immigrants feel that the Homeland Security is behind all of that.
Well, it is the Department of Homeland Security that handles DACA applications. So I mentioned before Homeland Security and USCIS, or Citizenship and Immigration Services, they are the ones who process these applications. And so if they're rejecting the applications, then yes, that is their decision. And we've been seeing that happening. And then yesterday was sort of the official word that, or I guess earlier this week, the official word that is what they're going to do. And so, right now it's sort of the ball in the court of Homeland Security, and so that's what we're trying to figure out now, because they're at odds with what the Supreme Court said, and so that's why we're trying to figure out, is that something where basically, does Homeland Security not have a leg to stand on, or are they going about this the right way, and how can we deal with it? And so, that is the agency. If you're looking for a specific part of the government that's dealing with DACA, it's definitely Homeland Security.
Yeah, because like I stated before, when they come out and protest, it's very peaceful, it's very organized and what have you. They make their statements made, and I hate to say they because I hate to use that word, but they do when they're out and they make their voices heard. They are specific, and so they want to get specific to the target. So they feel that Homeland Security may have influenced the president to be able to go ahead and push this, this thing that they are trying to do away with DACA. So that's the reason why I wanted to clarify that. And so one more thing I even thought about that is even not on the panel list of questions, and that is to share with the listeners the difference between Homeland Security and ICE.
Yeah, that's a good thing to learn. So, there's a lot of different agencies that deal with different part of immigration. So when you talk about different departments, we're talking about cabinet level or the cabinet of the president, and that would be things like the Secretary of State, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Agriculture. There's a few of these secretaries that have been in charge of these departments. Some of them for hundreds of years. With Homeland Security, that's a relatively new department. That came out after September 11th, 2001, when that department was created. But Homeland Security, it's a big department. It's on the same level as things like the Department of Defense, Department of the Treasury, and then within Homeland Security are smaller agencies that handle different things. So there's USCIS. That's the agency I probably deal with the most. But there's also ICE, which stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And that's sort of like the police. You can think of them as the police that are enforcing immigration laws. They're the ones who, if they know that someone is here without permission or that they've broken the rules of their visa, that's who will either come to their house, and sometimes they do make arrests and detain these people. Other times it's just a notice to appear in court, kind of like a court summons. And then they also are in charge. Sometimes immigrants are under a sort of probation or parole where they're being supervised, and it's ICE that helps handle that. So ICE is kind of like the police side you can think of. And then USCIS, which I deal with mostly, is more of an administrative procedure, handling paperwork when people ask for immigration benefits like a petition, like a visa, like a green card. And so USCIS is more who you go to try to get a benefit. ICE is more about finding the people who are breaking the rules or who are here without permission and then having them go to immigration court. Immigration court is actually with the Department of Justice, so it's technically outside of Homeland Security, but it's all part of the U.S. government. So it makes it nice and confusing and messy. But basically Homeland Security does a lot of the immigration stuff that I deal with, but there's also Department of Justice, Department of State, even the Department of Labor are all kind of involved with some immigration issues.
Okay, so the USIS is more basically like the Supreme Court in the United States.
They do have kind of a judiciary power where they are the ones deciding whether to approve or deny certain applications. So they're the ones who are looking at applications and evidence that people send in, and they decide whether to approve or not. So in that sense, they are kind of a judicial agency.
Okay. So a couple of more topics that I want to touch on real quick, if time permits. So it's just about out of time, but this is in regards to the workplace for immigrants. Okay, so we know that temporary agencies, they have to follow the policies and procedures and the laws just like the equal opportunity employer here in the United States. But some immigrants are being treated a little bit differently, even though they work. And so the question is, where can DACA immigrants or DACA recipients file complaints against temporary agencies if they can?
Yeah.
Or if they
Yeah, those are some great questions. So, yeah, if someone has DACA, they have a work permit, that means they are allowed to work in the United States, and so they shouldn't be worried about looking for a job or whether they will get in trouble just for having a job. But they do need to be careful with their employers who sometimes it's just out of honest mistakes that these employers don't really know about immigration and what work authorization is. And I think other times, unfortunately, there are employers who do take advantage of immigrants and DACA recipients and end up causing some trouble. But one thing is that if you have a work permit and you get a job and you're filling out a Form I-9, that's a form that employers use to show that someone is authorized to work. You want to be careful how you fill out that form because it asks basically where does your authorization come from? Does it come from being a U.S. citizen? Does it come from being a permanent resident? Or does it come from some other sort of work authorization? And if you have DACA, then you would need to say that it's other work authorization because if you have DACA, you do not have permanent residency, you're not a U.S. citizen. And sometimes the employees, they don't know how to fill out that form correctly or they don't think it's that important and they just kind of breeze through the form. Other times, employers will actually fill out the form for them and just tell them to sign it. And that can be really dangerous because you maybe don't know what you're signing. And then that could get you in trouble later on because that could be considered a false claim of U.S. citizenship. You know, if an employer just checks the box that says U.S. citizen because they think that makes it easier, but then you sign your name to it, that's a false claim of citizenship, and that could prevent you from getting a green card or getting citizenship in the future. And so I've seen that happen a couple of times where an immigrant gets in some trouble or has to explain why they marked the wrong box on a form. And sometimes they aren't even the ones who checked it. It's the employer who did it for them. And so I've heard of employers who maybe they do that on purpose, other employers who maybe just don't think it matters and they end up making a mistake. So that's one thing to be careful about. Something else that was part of your question was about like making a complaint about the workplace, whether it's reporting something a superior did. And people who have DACA or who have work authorization, they should not worry about getting in any sort of trouble with immigration for reporting something that happened in the workplace. And in fact, there are some immigration benefits to that. There is something called a U visa, which is a type of status that you can get if you are the victim of a crime. And usually we think of that in terms of violent crimes like assaults or domestic abuse. But there are also crimes that can help you get a U visa that might happen in the workplace, like harassment or stalking or witness tampering even, or if there's something like that going on. And usually the types of cases I deal with are a criminal case where someone reported an assault to the police. But there are also ways to report to the Department of Labor or to the EEOC some kind of workplace incident, and that could actually lead to a U visa as well. So yeah, I would say if something happens in the workplace, even if you're working legally or illegally, it doesn't really matter. If you're the victim of a crime or if you think there's a crime that happened or something else that you're the victim of, go ahead and report it to the right agency. And if you cooperate with reporting it and answering questions and helping with the investigation, it could actually help you with immigration as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because, even with I saw a story, and so I'll just put it like that. People don't want to put their names out there, but I saw a story. Sure. So what happened was that the temporary agency had kind of held the female hostage. She was staying like in a home. It appeared to be like it was here in America. Let's see, the state was California, and it was like an underground path where she lived, but of course she was hiding, and it apparently appeared that she was working for them illegally. They were kind of blackmailing her, making her work a lot of hours without paying her and what have you. And so after, looking at that and listening to it and what have you, and I said, well, I think these would be some real good questions, and this is going to kind of push me into bringing you back on the show. Simply because of the fact these questions need to be addressed. I want to pull everything out of the plug. I know that, every attorney that we bring on the show, they are paid attorneys. I'll never bring public defenders on here, but this can be able to help the recipients to be able to hear and say, oh, okay, then guess what? JJ said that I could do that. Let me go over here and talk to him and hire him to see how he can be. She was living she lives like an underground passage. And so because of her hiding, and it was some more immigrants too, I'm not going to call their names, but it was a lot of more, and they were working for this well-known warehouse that we all shop at a lot of times, the Americans do, but they were I don't want to say handcuffed, but they were blackmailing them by forcing them to work a lot of hours. They were doing jobs that they should not have been doing, because I've worked temporary agencies back when I was young, 30 or 40 years ago, and I've done that before. So there are certain stipulations that they have with the temporary employees, because they don't carry insurance on them. And so he was hiding and what have you, and so I just want to see if that would be something that we could be able to discuss on an upcoming podcast in regards to looking into that. We're not trying to uncover I'm not even going to bring up the company. It's a huge company, but I'm not even going to bring up their name, because I don't want to end up on television. But it was sad that, I wanted to bring the answers to them so they don't have to feel that they are under any type of subjection to be hiding from these people, and they have to work. And it's like they're working a lot of hours, and so one of the guys were terminated because he was Hispanic. He was terminated because he spoke up because of the wrongdoing that they were doing. So I wanted to see if that would be something, and I can bring a couple more attorneys on with you. I want to be able to expose this. I'm sorry, I do, because I didn't like that about that lady was living up under that underground type of thing, and she was in hiding, and and she didn't want to discuss. Oh no. We want to bring things out where immigrants, if they are doing wrong, okay, then you may be deported. But if you live legally here in the United States, they have a right to live freely just like any other American and not be harassed.
Yeah, and the situation you're describing, it definitely sounds like something where the U visa can help. There's also a T visa, which is similar, but more about human trafficking. And I know that's kind of a harsh thing to say, but whenever someone is being forced to work or is working without being paid or conditions like that could count for human trafficking and maybe getting a T visa. So, yeah, that's definitely something we can talk more about.
Okay, great. So today, listeners, we have had an awesome time on the broadcast today, giving you the information that you need. We have had JJ on here for the last 3 weeks. He's coming back, hopefully with another, some more panel guests, so we can be able to help you to feel more at ease while you're here in the United States. No matter what's going on with the legal system of the president and what they're trying to pass as far as bills and different other issues that they're trying to create for immigrants. We're here to give you the answers so you can be able to seek out an attorney, professional attorney, and then you can be able to get the more tools and resources that you need. So at this time, JJ, could you be able to explain to them how they can be able to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me through the website of my law firm. It's WilnerO'Reilly.com. You can search for Wilner and O'Reilly on the internet and find us that way. I am also on Twitter at JJD Immigration. I'm on Instagram with the same handle, JJD Immigration. And then you can also find me on Facebook, also with JJD Immigration. So, I'm on social media, and then if you want a consultation, what we're doing right now is any first consultation is free, and that gives you 30 minutes to talk about your case, ask questions, and see if there's a way we can help. We're doing all of our consultations by phone or by video conferencing, Zoom or Skype or something like that, which also means that it's pretty easy to have a consultation with us no matter where you are in the United States or even in the world. We can try to arrange an appointment to figure out your options. So we have offices in California, Utah, and Idaho, but we can meet with you no matter where you are. So, find me online and we can set something up.
Okay, great. So thank everyone for listening, and we'll be back on with the DACA recipients in another couple of weeks, and so enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, JJ.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.